But over the weekend, Amari Sankofa, Piston Insider, Detroit Free Press, did a story why the Pistons are unlikely to make a big splash in 2020 NBA free agency. Everything leading up until this point was all the arrows pointed at them making a big splash. They had amongst the most cap space in the NBA. They had needs. They had wants. And we had heard specifically that they seemed to be positioning themselves for DeAndre Ayton. There was discussion of Miles Bridges being a target. Jalen Brunson, Colin Sexton, some of the bigger name free agents that are available. And we could debate the merits of each of them. But it really felt like the Jeremy Grant move, all arrows were pointing to DeAndre Ayton. Then the draft took place. And I'm going to read excerpts from Amari's story as to why things appear to have changed. The dust has settled for the Detroit Pistons for now. Free agency starts 6 p.m. Thursday. Detroit could have close to $45 million in available cap space, the most of any team in the league, according to Spot Track NBA salary cap expert Keith Smith. Priorities have shifted after Thursday's draft haul. Detroit did not expect to leave the night with 2 lottery picks, and adding both Ivey and Duren has lessened the incentive to make a free agency splash. Rather than invest most of their cap space into one player, sources say it's now more likely the Pistons will divide their money across multiple smaller targets. With a talented core in place, the focus is now on rounding out the roster and addressing specific needs. That means it's less likely we'll see Ayton or Bridges in a Piston uniform next season unless they're willing to sign for significantly less than the max deals they are eligible for. The roster still lacks shooting, and the Pistons will address that need in free agency. Unrestricted free agents Joe Ingles, Malik Monk, and former Spartans Gary Harris and Bryn Forbes are all potential options. It's less exciting than adding star power, but the Pistons are committing to their youth movement. They're sticking with a patient approach. Free agency likely won't speed their timeline up, even as they continue taking steps to build a contender. Okay. Interesting stuff. Insightful reporting. I don't doubt for a second that Amari is dialed in and talking to people in the organization and kind of has a sense of what's going on. Now, could that change? I suspect it could, but we asked the question on Twitter of people, is this smart or disappointing? Is it smart, slow and steady? There are guys out there that would apparently take Detroit's money. I mean, one of them was reported to have interest in playing with Cade Cunningham.
Mm-hmm. And DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah. And yet, of the biggest free agents, to me, I think one of the things that made me uncomfortable talking about this from going this route, it felt more like a Charlie Villanueva, Ben Gordon class than it did a Chauncey Billups class. Like it felt more like a class that the perfect player wasn't there with the price tag and the value that the Pistons were looking for. Now there's other guys I'd covet, and we've talked about them at length, and that market's probably changed in the last 24 hours as well. We'll get to that coming up. But to pass on the big name free agents to make smaller moves specific to team needs, is this smart or disappointing? We'll update you on the Twitter voting as the show goes on. And of course, if you comment on the thread underneath, we will read many of your comments. But Gator, what is your gut telling you on this one?
My gut tells me it's smart. And I would have to imagine that GMs in their office or somewhere, that they've got a list of all of the 2022 free agents, the 2023 free agents, and the 2024 free agents, that they do things, whatever, and look at things 3 years in advance. And you're looking at players and like, okay, I want to identify these guys. We really like these guys. And we think that when they come to free agency, that's when we're going to go for it. And I think they do the same thing when it comes to the NBA draft to an extent, because obviously things change year by year with all the one and dones in the NBA draft. But I think that they follow players. The Pistons, because of what they've done in the draft the last 3 years, have put themselves in a position where if you wanted to go out and get one of the real big free agent type names, like a Bradley Beal type, right? You've kind of taken yourself out of that because of who you've drafted in each of the last 3 drafts. They've done really well, whether it's getting a forward that can shoot the ball like Sadiq Bey, Cade Cunningham, top pick in the draft. Got Jaden Ivey now, Jalen Duren right now. These guys are building blocks, and they're going to be starters in the NBA. So if you were to think about adding the top free agent, like a Beal, or if you wanted to think about Kyrie Irving or something, that doesn't make sense. Forget about the extraneous stuff. It's just on the court doesn't make sense because they would take minutes away from the guys that you just invested in and you really like. It would be different if this is years past and you're looking at, a backcourt that has Rodney Stuckey and you're looking for, okay, he's good but not great. Let's look for the upgrade and let's be bold. They don't have that luxury here with the big time free agents. So it's when you look at the guys and you say that Ayton or Bridges who are restricted free agents, that it has a feel of Villanueva and Ben Gordon. I agree with you. I think it does because these are guys that they're free agents, but they're not spectacular players. And they're at a point in their careers where they're going to get paid. Do you want to tie up that kind of money for guys that are, good players but not great players? Or do you want to wait, see how this core group advances and plays together and gels, and take a look at 2023 free agency? And if you look at 2023 free agency, it seems like there's a lot more talent to sift from. There are good players that can be had in this year's free agent pool. And this is where I like what he had to say. You don't have to go out and get Miles Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, who are going to cost tens of millions of dollars, and you're going to question whether or not it was worth it. They've got plenty of players like Malik Monk or Bryn Forbes to look at that can definitely help this team out right now. You're getting them at a much lesser price. You've got your own free agent, Marvin Bagley, to look at. I like that approach better than trying to make a splash or trying to force Ayton or Bridges to be something that they're really not.
I think what really happened here, I do think they had targeted DeAndre Ayton. And I think they wanted DeAndre Ayton. And I think they looked at the financial commitment, the cap space, and they were willing to make it. And then Jalen Duren fell into their lap. And it's one of those deals where if we're going to draft this guy, if we're going to make this move and draft this guy, I also think that they like Marvin Bagley. And if you get Ayton, there's redundancy there. There's a bit of a roadblock there to developing the younger players they want to develop. I don't know that they were ever truly interested in Brunson or Sexton. In Bridges could still be interesting because out of all the names, like the bigger free agents, Bridges is the one I would go after if they were to go that route. But I think landing Jalen Duren specifically, they're like, why are we going to roadblock him with a contract that's probably going to be, 4 to 6 years when we need to get this guy minutes and we need to develop him because we got a special player here. We think we got a special player here, and we like Bagley. You can't have max players at every position, so you have to pick and choose which guys are going to fill out your roster, and Bagley might be the perfect price and the perfect style of player to play there.
When they drafted Jalen Duren, it said to me that they don't really need DeAndre Ayton. You just don't.
I mean, it'd be better if you're trying to win a game next Tuesday. I'd rather have DeAndre Ayton.
Sure,
but that's not what they're trying to do.
No, it's a process, and to commit the kind of money on a max contract for DeAndre Ayton, that makes no sense, and you're handcuffing yourself a little bit in terms of what your potential really is, because you're unable to spend in the future, and you're hitching your wagon to a guy that isn't going to be part of the future for the Phoenix Suns, which have such a bright future. I always go back to it. Why wouldn't Phoenix re-sign the guy?
All right, 248-539-9797. It appears, Piston Insider Mari Sankova reporting that they are not likely to go the big name free agent route. You comfortable with this? You happy with this? Is this the smart move, the wise move, or is it disappointing?